When I was in seminary, went to Midwestern Seminary in Kansas City. Some of the funnest times were there because you got to meet some really neat people. For you guys that are in school, you have professors that, some are just, you're like, they're okay, and others you're like, wow, I really like this professor. They really take the time to talk to you and really kind of mentor you and mold you. And one of the privileges that I had in seminary was having professors that I could be like, wow, these people are the real deal. They're like super amazing people. And it was kind of neat because we would have different speakers come through for chapel. And it's like one day, I don't know if you guys know who Luis Palau is. Luis Palau is kind of like the Billy Graham of South America, but he actually goes all over the world now. And he is a traveling evangelist. I got to hold the door. He spoke in chapel one day, and I got to hold the door for him. I felt so honored to be able to hold the door for Luis Palau. And then John Piper came and spoke at chapel one time, and I got to meet and talk to him afterwards. That was really pretty cool. And so I loved seminary because you had these guest speakers, but I really loved some professors really a lot, big time. One of the professors that really meant a lot to me and really marked my life was Dr. Lavelle Seats. He's passed on. But Dr. Seats was, at the time, he was this old missionary guy who had been a missionary his whole life. And in the Southern Baptist denomination, which our seminary is affiliated with, it's probably one of the largest denominations in North America. They have what you call the International Mission Board. And it's actually, I think, the largest mission agency in the world as of right now. I think there's over 4,000 or 5,000 missionaries full-time around the world supported by the denomination, and I have friends that are in that. But Dr. Seats, back in the 50s and 60s, after World War II, he was commissioned by the IMB, the International Mission Board, to set up Africa for missions, for the Southern Baptist missions. And he did such a fantastic job that Billy Graham actually was like, hey, I want you to be on my staff. And he turned down Billy Graham and was like, no, I need to keep staying in Africa. And so he would have these incredible stories to tell. Well, we developed a really good friendship because we just got to spend a lot of time together. So on Saturdays, we would go over to his house in Kansas City. I would cut his grass. And he had this little patch of tomato plants in the backyard that he was so proud of. And he always wanted me to get the hose and water his tomato plants. And so I'd water his tomato plants. But the boys and Beth would be inside. And he would have toys for the boys to play with, and they were really super little. And Dr. Seats had this chair, I don't know what to call it, but it's an old, the kind that it goes down a stairwell and it comes back up, and the boys would ride it back and forth up and down the stairwell to the basement. But it was really hard for me when he passed on. I know he's with the Lord. I remember his funeral. It was really heart-wrenching to lose a mentor in your life. But one thing that he gave me that is really meaningful for me, something that I keep on me, in fact, is this. One time in his travels, he got to go to Jerusalem. He was all over the world. And this is actually something he brought back from Jerusalem. It's made out of olive wood, and it's like a little chalice, which kind of represents, I think, communion. And he brought this back, and he gave this to me. And so I literally keep this every day in my pocket. And it's a reminder to me of Dr. Seats, one of my best mentors I've ever had. And it's a challenge to me to walk with Christ, because he did. And I keep this. In fact, it's not a good luck charm. It's just something that I always have in my pocket every day. And if I don't have it, I feel really like, oh no, what did I do with it? I hope I didn't misplace it. Today we're looking at a scripture that talks about the importance of us keeping the promises of Christ first in our life. We're looking through this series in the book of Revelation. And there's 7 blessings that are scattered through the book of Revelation. And we're on number 6, so we're almost actually complete with our series. But the challenge is for us is to keep Christ first. When you look at chapters 2 and 3 in Revelation, there's 7 churches that Jesus has special messages to. And he commends each church for, hey, I see you're doing this well. But then he also has some constructive criticism for the church. And most of the time, it's centered on them deviating, drifting, backsliding, playing with the world instead of focusing on Christ. And so he always has these little words of constructive criticism to each of the churches. And so these 7 blessings come to these churches, but also to us who are now reading this 2,000 years later. And I believe these blessings are for us too. And so when we come to Revelation chapter 22, we're actually looking now at verse 7, I believe is what I put in your bulletin there. Yeah, so I want us to focus on this. And he says this. He says, "See, I am coming soon. Blessed is the one who keeps the words of the prophecy of this book." Okay, so he uses this word, blessed is the one who keeps. And the word keeps is in the present tense. It's really a present tense participle. It's this idea of blessed is the one who is continually keeping. Not just you kept it once and now you're going on with your life. No, you're making a habit, a concerted effort, a focus that you are going to keep Jesus and his word number one in your life. Recently, I had to get a new phone. My phone, one of the buttons on it died. Actually, I had just gotten it like at New Year's, and I was really excited about my new phone. But one of the frustrations about getting a new phone is you lose a lot of stuff when you get a different one. And I thought I was transferring everything over from the old phone to the new one, and like none of my pictures transferred. It's like I lost it all. And it's really frustrating because I thought I had kept them safe, and they were gone. And so in the same way, Jesus is saying, look, keep what I'm giving you, store it in you so that it's a part of your DNA of who you are so that you can't lose this. Let me give you some scriptures that talk about the importance of keeping God's word first, what he says to us first. Joshua 1:8 says, "This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and you will have good success." Psalm 119, verse 9 to 11 says, "How can a young man keep his way pure? By keeping it according to your word. With my whole heart I seek you. Let me not wander. I have stored up your word in my heart that I might not sin against you." Even John says in John 14, Jesus says, and John writes, he says in John 14, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments." There's that word keep again. "And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another helper to be with you forever." What's the helper supposed to do? The helper is going to help you keep the commandments of Christ. "Even the Spirit of truth in the world cannot receive, because it neither sees him nor knows him. You know him, for he dwells with you and will be in you. I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you. Yet a little while and the world will see me no more, but you will see me. Because I live, you will live. And that day you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. Whoever has my commandments and keeps them, he it is who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and manifest myself to him." Jesus answered, "If anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him and will come to him and make our home with him. Whoever does not love me does not keep my words, and the word that you hear is not mine, but the Father's who sent me." And then finally in 1 John chapter 5, verse 2 and 3, it says, "By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and obey his commands. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments. And his commandments are not burdensome." So what I want to do today is, over and over in Scripture, we have this command, this challenge, this standard of keeping the Word of God fresh in our life. How do we do that? I mean, we're all busy. We all struggle. We're broken people. None of us are perfect. So how do we do this? So I want us to go to Luke chapter 6, verse 46 through 49. This is a story that Jesus gave, And he really is using this story to illustrate how to keep his word, I believe. And so, if we're going to be blessed in keeping the word, let's look at 4 ways we can keep the word of Christ to us fresh and first. I don't know about you guys, but Easter's coming up, and I love Peeps. I don't know what it is. Maybe I have a problem. Maybe I'm trying to satisfy something from my childhood. But when I eat a Peep, a little Peep, I don't care what color it is. I just get warm fuzzies. It takes me to the happy place, and I don't know. It seems like the world is right. But what happens is, if you open up a little box of Peeps, and I think there's 12 of them, and you can't just eat one, so you have to eat at least half the box. And so you're trying to not get sick, so you put the box down. Well, the problem is you go to it the next day, and the Peeps are a little crusty. They get a little dried out. Now, some people like it that way, but I still like them soft and gooey and all that. And they just get kind of stale, and they get kind of like, what happened? And I think they lose that freshness. Well, Jesus wants us to keep the freshness of him first. Gosh, did I just make Jesus out to be a Peep? I'm sorry. Okay, pray for me. All right, so anyway, this passage, I believe, will help us to keep Jesus fresh and first in our life. Okay? So let's read it, and then we'll look at 4 ways to keep Jesus that number 1 that we want him to be. He says in Luke chapter 6, starting in verse 46 through 49, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I tell you? I will show you what someone is like who comes to me, hears my words, and acts on them. That one is like a man building a house who dug deeply and laid the foundation on rock. When a flood arose, the river burst against that house but could not shake it because it had been well built. But the one who hears and does not act is like a man who built a house on the ground without a foundation. When the river burst against it, immediately it fell, and great was the ruin of that house." That word great is the word mega. And mega was the ruin of that house. Okay, so Jesus is talking about, if you're going to follow me, if you're going to come to me, you're going to hear my words, and you're going to act on them, what do? 4 things I think we need to keep in mind. Number 1, K, I'm using the word keep, K-E-E-P. So K stands for this: kidnap your affections and put them on Jesus. Kidnap your affections and put them on Jesus. Notice in this passage how Jesus talks about himself. He's saying, look, if you're going to call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I tell you. If someone comes to me, hears my words, he's being very exclusive here. He's not just a nice teacher who's saying, hey, let's all make the world a better place, just love everybody and just get along. He's saying, I want you exclusively from me. Kidnap your affections, put them on Christ. What's your affections? Your affections is what strokes your ego the most. What strokes your ego the most? We all have an ego. It feels good when it gets stroked. And you know how that feels. It's almost like a drug. You want it more and more and more. And we all have it. Jesus is saying, give that to me. Put that in my hands. Surrender that to me. You know, one of the hardest things for us to surrender to Christ is our ego. It's easy to say, I need Jesus because I'm broken, and I need him because of my shame, of my sin. Oh yeah, how am I going to be forgiven? Yeah, for all the things I did. Oh good, he has a plan. Yay, I'm forgiven. But it's another to say, Jesus, take my ego. It's another to say, Jesus, everything that I really desire in life, I want it to be you. Because that requires you to die to yourself. Because guess what? at that moment, you're saying, my life is not about me anymore. It's about him. And that's a painful, toxic thing. That's a decision that's you have to detox of yourself to do that. And that's hard. And your friends will think you're crazy. Your family will think you're crazy because now Jesus is number one. Kidnap your affections. Put them on Jesus. Now let's just pretend for a moment. Let's pretend that evolution is true, that there's no God, and that we're all here by random chance. Let's just pretend for a moment. How would you live your life? How would most people live their life? If there's no deity to answer to, let's pretend we knew for sure right now that there is no God, and we're all just here by some science wonder miracle that just happened, and there's really no standards in life. What is life about? Life is about you. And it's about what you make of it and what you get out of it and maximizing your potential. Right? Because why? You don't want to waste your life. I remember when I told my dad, and I love my dad, but I remember when I told him I was going into the ministry, you know what he told me? What a waste. What a waste. If there's no God, it's all about you. But if there is a God and Jesus is truly worthy of all of who you are, then you can't live that way anymore. And yet there's a lot of Christians who do. Because they've never kidnapped their affections and put them on Jesus. And their affections have kidnapped them. Give Christ everything. The greatest worship you can do for Jesus is really nothing you do. It's just putting your life in his hands. That's the greatest thing you can do for Christ. And it's not something you do. We all dream of doing things big for God. I want to make a big splash for Jesus with my life. Right? Again, that's my ego talking. But what's the greatest thing that I can do? Is to say, Jesus, here. You do with me whatever you want to do. I let go. Kidnap your affections. Put them on Christ. E, the letter E, stands for this. Expect to be tested once you do. Expect to be tested once you do that. Not just once, not just twice, but lots of times. I was really struggling with this the other day. God is so good. He provides people in your life at just the right times. And at work, our regional manager is actually a Christian. And he and I were going to an appointment, and we were talking on the way. And I was telling him about just some struggles I'm going through and just how I feel like Satan just won't let up, attacking. And it's exhausting. And he gave me, it was really some neat encouragement. He said, Brian, Satan doesn't hunt people that don't matter. He said, take it as a compliment if you're under attack, because you're a threat to his kingdom. Satan's not going to go after the people that are addicted to drugs or sex or whatever it is their addiction is that's pulling them down. They're already serving him. He doesn't need to waste his time on them. Who's he going to go after? He's going to go after the people that are trying to live for Christ. And I needed to hear that. Some of you right now are going through that. Some of you guys right now are really being tested. And I want to encourage you. Don't go through it alone. Lean on each other. That's what we've got to be there for each other for. I mean, this is what church is about. It's not just, it's about you carrying the burdens of somebody else. It's about them crying on your shoulder, and one day you're going to cry on theirs. Guys, if we can't do that with each other, why are we here? Galatians 6:2 says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. We've got to bear each other's burdens. Acts 14:22 says, through many tribulations we will enter the kingdom of God. You will be tested. And that's why Jesus said, this guy who built on the rock, he had to dig deep. It takes time to dig deep. Digging deep takes time, and it's painful. But it's worth it, because you will be tested. Expect to be tested. The next letter is E, so kidnap your affections, expect to be tested. And then the next E is this: eliminate the things and people that go against the character of Jesus from your life. This is going to be one of the hardest things for you to do as a Christian. Because I'm not saying we can't have non-Christian friends. We all do. And rightfully so. I mean, who else is going to be Jesus to them, right? But we also have to be very careful, because their affection is not Christ. And there's a saying that says, if you hang around a barbershop, you're going to get a haircut. It's true. You hang around a barbershop, you're going to get a haircut. The people you hang around with, you will start looking like them. So be very careful with the kind of time that you spend with non-Christians. I'm not saying don't have friends that are non-Christians. They need Jesus. But be very wise and careful in how much time you give them. Every once in a while on Facebook, I look through my friends list, and it's so funny because I see people in there that I'm friends with, and I've been friends with them for years. I say friends in quotes. I don't even know these people. I'm like, I've known you for 2-3 years now, 4 years, 5, and I don't even know where you are. It's weird. And so I'm like, and I was trying to clean up my friends list the other day, going, this is crazy. I got all these people I really honestly don't know. I mean, I really don't know who they are. Maybe I'm losing it, but I don't really know. And it was hard. And I'm like, I don't even know how to begin this. Because I don't want to unfriend somebody that is supposed to be like somebody that was in the youth group when I was a youth pastor or whatever. I don't want to do that. So I ended up just not doing anything. But I would rather have 5 close friends that know me than 500 that I'm like. And I think that's the challenge that you and I live in today, is we live in such a social media world that we're consumers at heart. So the more friends you have, the better you are. The more your friend list grows, wow, you're cool. And it's like, I would rather do away with all of my list and just have the 5 people in that list that know me inside and out. So I want to encourage you guys to just be careful with where you spend your time. It's hard, and it will continue to be a challenge. There's a story somewhere in the Pacific. There's these monkey. This is actually a true story. I don't know where, but there's monkey hunters. They hunt monkeys, and I guess they eat them. I've never had monkey. Maybe it's really good. I'll eat anything. I'll try it. But anyway, listen to how they capture these monkeys. So, because monkeys are pretty crafty, they're smart, they're hard to catch. So the way these hunters capture the monkeys is this: they find a gourd, and they it's basically empty now. I guess they dry it out, whatever. But they put a little hole in the gourd, and they drop something shiny like a coin into the gourd, the bottom of it. And then they hang this in a tree, and they tie a rope to it. So what happens is the monkey, obviously scooting around in the tree, he sees this gourd. He's like, I see a hole in the gourd. I wonder what's in the gourd. And he peeks in the hole, and he sees something shiny in there. And so the monkey reaches his arm in there, and I guess they have hands. I don't know if you call it a paw. I don't know what you call a monkey's hand. But he reaches in, he grabs the coin, but his hand won't come through the hole because he's holding a fist now. His fist won't fit through it. But he can feel it. he's so just captured by these, like, wow, I got it. I'm not going to let go. And he's pulling, that he doesn't notice the hunters coming up who are throwing a net on him because he won't let go. If he just let go, his hand would come right out. But he's holding on to that coin, and he will not let go. And all they have to do is throw a net on him, and boom, he's done. That's how you capture a monkey. Guys, you are being hunted. The evil one knows how to put shiny things in your path that you're going to be like, oh, I got to have that. Yes, I got it. I got it. And while you're just like, I can't eat, he's throwing a net over you. Guys, be careful. Eliminate things and people in your life that go against the character of Christ. Really watch out for that. And you may have to walk away from some friendships. You may have to. I've had to do it. It's hard.
Did you have to walk away from some family members too?
Yes. It's very difficult. And you do it in love. I'm not saying you do it spitefully. I'm not saying you do it with hate or any kind of like, holy am I. It's a very painful thing. But sometimes you have to distance yourself. Okay? So kidnap your affections. Put them on Jesus. Expect to be tested as you do. Eliminate things and people that go against the character of Christ from your life. And then find the final letter is P. Peeking at Christ is not the same as pursuing Christ. Peeking at Jesus is not the same as pursuing Jesus. Jesus gives this story about the guy who builds this house. I've never built a house before, but I'm sure it takes more than 2 hours. It took some time. He didn't just glance at the idea and go, oh yeah, I'll build a house there, but I'm too busy today. But in my head, I can see it. And I got the blueprints right here. Peeking at Jesus is not the same as pursuing Jesus. I have an addiction. I love to run. I even ran this morning. I don't know. I just, when I was a kid, I loved to run. Sometimes I'd pretend I was an airplane taking off. But never could get the takeoff part to work. But I love to run. It's a time for me and Jesus to just be out there together. I use it as a prayer time. I don't know how to describe it. And one of the things that I love running, my favorite race is the marathon. And the marathon is 26.2 miles. It's a long haul. I haven't run a marathon in a few years. I used to do 2 a year. And it took me 6 months to train to do one, and then I'd rest for about a month, and then another 6 months to do the next one. So that was kind of my calendar for the year, basically. Well, I had a friend who decided one day that he was going to run a marathon, and he told me the story of this. He didn't train at all. He just jumped into the race like the day of and decided, I can do this. And he got almost halfway before he had to collapse. And he couldn't walk for like 2 or 3 days. I mean, and I wish you could hear the story when he told me this. I was laughing so hard. And because he told it in such a way that was so vivid about his feet and the blisters and all that. But he did no training whatsoever. He didn't prepare himself. He didn't prioritize it. He just decided, I'm just going to go do this. Guys, if we're going to build a house on the rock, it's going to take time, but it's going to take planning and preparation and priority. You don't just decide one day to do it. You make a lifestyle of doing it. One of the things that Jesus said in verse 47, he says, I will show you what someone is like who comes to me, hears my word, and acts on them. That word, the verbs there, comes, hears, and acts, those are participles that are ongoing. They're continually doing it. You're running every day doing these three things. You're coming to Christ, you're hearing His word, you're being obedient. You're coming to Christ, you're hearing His word, you're doing what He says. You're running to Jesus, you're hearing what He says to you, you're listening, and you're going out and you're doing it. It's a continual boom, 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 boom. Can you hear the cadence? Can you feel like you're running? That's what He's saying here. Peaking is not the same as pursuing. As we wrap up for today, I have one more thought I want you guys to consider. Why do you think Jesus gave us this story? Why does it matter? Does it really matter how you live your life, the choices you make, the friendships you keep? Does it really matter? I mean, again, in a world in which God doesn't exist, it doesn't matter. But if God really does exist, and if Jesus really is the way, the truth, and the life, yes, it matters how you live your life. And Jesus said in Matthew 6:21, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Is Jesus your everything? Does He have all of you? You know, we always pray, I need more of God in my life. No, you don't. God needs more of you. Jesus died on the cross to give you it all. The problem is, you haven't died on your cross to give Him your all. Kidnap your affections. Give them to Christ. Expect to be tested. You will. We need each other. Eliminate things that get in the way, that pull you down. And then remember that peaking is not the same as pursuing.